Buenas tardes. Hoy tengo el lujo, el privilegio de estar con Adrienne Young, la autora de Fable. Todos ustedes querían conocerla, querían hacerle preguntas y yo tengo el lujo de estar acá con ella, así que ahora le voy a saludar en inglés. Hello, Adrienne. How are you today? I'm telling your public, your readers, that I'm very delighted that you're here with us today so we can ask you a lot of questions in a short period of time. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great and very, very excited to be here.
Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot for being here. Let me tell you before we begin that the readers were very anxious to read your book and the reviews so far have been amazing. So we are very happy all at the Pack imprint because of this growing success. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, well, our first question is a little bit obvious, but we must do it. Is how did you first start writing? How was the process?
Yes, I've been writing since I was very young. When I was younger, I loved to write poetry and short stories. And it wasn't until I was maybe about 24 or 25 years old that I first started trying to write full-length novels. And started kind of taking my dream more seriously and thinking maybe I could really publish a book one day. And so I kind of started that process a little bit later, always dreamed of being an author, but didn't totally believe that dream could come true until I was much older.
And what happened when you were much older that you said, well, this can really come true? What was the follow up of that?
I think I was a young mom and I was staying home with my two young boys, and I kind of felt like a little bit lost about what I wanted to do with my life and what vision I had for my life and the things that I had dreamed about that I had kind of forgotten over the years. And I think having that time where I was really isolated at home and kind of wondering about my future really drew me back to my passion for writing. And once I really started getting into storytelling on a bigger scale with novels, I was just completely addicted to it. I fell completely in love with it and didn't want to do anything else.
Okay, that's nice. And how did you start at first creating the world of Fable? How did you first put yourself in that world? How did it happen?
It came to me, the idea for the story came to me kind of in a picture of a girl standing on a beach, and she was watching her father sail away and he wasn't going to come back. And so I had this very colorful, vibrant picture in my head of this kind of ocean world with, bright turquoise blues and the beautiful sandy beach and all of that. But I really didn't know anything else about the world until I started writing Fable's story and trying to figure out, who is this girl? Why did her father leave her here? What is she doing there? What's she going to do? And I think as I started to write the book, the world really started filling in around me. So it was very much a process of discovery for me. As I was writing, I really had no definite plans about how I wanted to construct this world. And then it started kind of unraveling as I was working in this really fun, exciting way. And I just got more and more excited about the actual world and all of the details. And it just made me like so inspired and kind of made the story keep growing and growing.
And about the research of this world, did you have to do a lot of research, for example, about the words that you would use, about the elements, about the settings? Do you have time? I mean, you're a mother, so you are busy all the time. But how did you go on doing with the research? How did you do it?
I did a lot of research for this book, more than any other book I've ever worked on. I had never even been sailing when I first started working on this project. And so there's so much to learn about not just the kind of language you use for ships and the actual act of sailing, but there's like a lot of math and science that you have to know in order to like read wind currents and tides and all of those things, just things I was not knowledgeable about. And so I did a ton of research online. I watched a million YouTube videos and like as much as I could learn on my own, I did. But then I also worked with a sailing expert in my draft. So once I had revised my draft, I sent it to a kind of consultant who is also a writer and has spent many, many years sailing and has a background in marine trade. And it was just a really interesting connection that I was able to work with her. And she gave me a lot of feedback on the book, on things that maybe I didn't get quite right or things I could do a little bit better. And I learned a lot through that process as well.
Maybe you watched Pirates of the Caribbean. Maybe you reread Moby Dick.
Yes,
all that
and
stuff.
I also Black Sails, the TV show Black Sails. I feel like
Yeah.
I had seen that before, and so I also pulled a lot of like imagery and that kind of those tactile, like sensational details from kind of those like movies and TV shows and things like that.
And are you going sailing these days after that research, or it stayed over there?
I haven't been. I've always wanted to go sailing and learn how to sail, and it just hasn't. I don't live really close to the coast, and so I haven't taken that on, but it's definitely on my bucket list for my life. I would love to learn how to sail.
Okay, and let's talk a little bit about your writing routines. How do you manage to do everything, to be a mom, to write? How do you have like a schedule?
I do now. I have a very strict schedule these days, and all of my children now are old enough to be in school. So my work hours are when they're in school. Like the moment they walk out the door and get on the bus, I am immediately working. And then, I work from home. So as soon as they get home from school, usually that's my work day is pretty much over. And so I just have to schedule things as well as I can. And then I also, when I'm drafting a new book or doing work that requires a lot of really long hours, I do writing retreats where I'll like rent a cabin somewhere or, just go somewhere else for like maybe 4 days and just be able to work uninterrupted as much as I can, because that's really hard to do at home. When you have
I can imagine
kids.
that.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you have like any favorite authors that you go back to them?
Yes,
read them?
I love, like, one of my favorite YA authors is Laini Taylor. She did Daughter of Smoke and Bone, and she's an incredible writer. I feel like she's one that I go back to again and again. And then there's a lot of adult writers that I love. I love Tana French, who does like murder mystery kind of police type things. I like a lot of different kinds of books. And so I feel like there are authors that I just want to read everything they've written. And then there are authors that I have like one favorite book of theirs. But I really love writing that is heavy on characterization. I love prose that is lyrical and feels really immersive. And I really love atmospheric settings as well.
Okay, cool. We will talk about that later. Talking about authors, I've heard that you are close to some also known authors like Stephanie Garber and Shay Earnshaw. And I was wondering when I heard that if you are like commenting on each other's work, or maybe, I don't know, one of you reads others' books, or maybe you give them tips or receive tips, or you are maybe very private and you don't want to share. How is that relationship with your fellow authors?
Yeah, I am actually very dear friends with Stephanie Garber and Shay Earnshaw. And I think also Puck has Shelby Mahurin. She's a good friend of mine. And Carrie Maniscalco is a friend of mine. So it's funny because writing is such a big world, but the publishing industry is kind of small. So over time, you kind of get to know a lot of other authors and become friends, and colleagues. So I think the biggest thing is support. Like once you have your agent and your editor and they're the ones really helping you write the book and revise the book, I think the biggest part that my author friends play for me is helping me get excited about ideas, like what I want to work on next, or If I'm having a specific plot problem, like I'll say, can you get on a FaceTime call with me and we can like have coffee together and like talk about this problem in my story and maybe like try to shake it out, you know. But I think the biggest thing is just having other authors who want to support your work and be a cheerleader for you and like just celebrate you and your successes and your wins. I think is so incredibly important, and just special things like Shay always sends me flowers when I have a book come out, you know, that type of thing. Yeah, that's just so kind and supportive and just makes you feel like you're not going it alone.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Very good. Talking about women, supporting women, how do you feel about female characters in YA in general, or specifically maybe in YA fantasy? What is your opinion? I mean, from what you've read, from the characters you like the most?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, you know, traditionally we used to see women in fantasy stories much more in like victimized roles. Like it was much more popular for women to be kind of a side means to an end in a story, or just there to kind of prop up the male characters and be used by them, or, you know, for their, you know, to their own ends. And that's really changed in young adult. I feel like now that strong female character is really celebrated in YA fantasy, especially. I think we see so many more female characters who have way more agency in the story than they used to, and serve a real purpose and kind of drive their own fate much more so than we used to, which I think is really fun. So we kind of like went from this place of like women who like very victimized women to really strong, fierce warrior women. And now I feel like we're coming to this kind of cool middle ground where we're seeing not just like strong warrior women, but women who are strong in other ways too, you know, like things that they don't have to be like killing people on the battlefield or whatever to be strong. And I think we're also seeing things that celebrate female friendship more and things like that. So I think it's a really cool time for young adult fantasy.
Are you very active in social media, or do you prefer not to be because it takes off time from your kids or from writing?
Yeah, my platform is on Instagram, and that's where I try to focus my time because I don't have time to keep up like Facebook and Twitter and all these things. So Instagram is really the platform where I connect with my readers and keep up with them and make announcements and, you know, keep them up to date on everything. And I really like Instagram. It's been a fun space for me. I don't have as much time as I used to be on there and interact, but I definitely enjoy it.
So, as we don't have a lot of time, we know that in October, we will be launching Namesake. And I have to ask, maybe a couple of details, maybe something for your readers that you can tell us without spoiling everything. I know, but a little detail. We're begging it.
Yeah, I'm so excited for Namesake to come out there. It is much more, you know, Fable is so much about Fable kind of trying to carve out her place in the world. It's also so much about her relationship with her father, Saint, and kind of her trying to understand what that relationship means, and that things aren't always what they seem, and, you know, being really let down by her expectations on him. And then in Namesake, the focus really shifts to Fable's mom more, and, you know, where her mom came from, and kind of the secrets that she took to her grave and how that impacts Fable. And so by the end of the two books, you kind of have these like two sides of Fable, like the dad side, the mom side, and her really coming to a better understanding of who she is because of both of her parents, but also coming to terms with who she is aside from them, you know? So her adventure continues and the world gets bigger. We get to go into different parts of the world that we didn't go in Fable. And so it's kind of this whole other pocket of outside of the Narrows that I think readers will really enjoy exploring.
Perfect. Then we will say that we will have a third book, which is The Last Legacy, and we're expecting it in January. We won't ask you about it, not yet at least. But we have a huge announcement is that you will be publishing with Umbriel Imprint your first novel for adults in the first trimester of 2023. How about it? How did you feel writing for a different audience? Is it very different or more or less the same? What can you tell us about it?
I felt like it was really different. I feel like in the kind of stories that I really love in adult and that I want to write in the adult category, they deal with different themes than my young adult books. And it's kind of, I feel like you can be a little bit more nuanced and complex with those. For the adult audience, there's kind of more room to take your time with story and take your time with characters. Whereas in young adult, pace is so important. And I love pacey books. I love it when I'm just page turning and I can't put a book down. I love that, but it feels like there's a little less pressure to do that in adult, and you can kind of dig into things that you don't really dig into all the time in young adult. And these books also, these adult novels that I'm working on, aren't your typical fantasy. They take place in a contemporary world, and they have this kind of like peripheral magic and fantastical elements that are not a straight up like fantasy world. So even though the books have a lot in common, they also are really different, which feels fun for me as a writer.
Okay, two more questions. I would like to ask you if there's a genre that you would like to try next, that you haven't tried still.
I don't know. I feel like I could come up with ideas for probably any genre and get excited about it. I worked on a sci-fi project years ago that I still really love the idea for. So I'm like, maybe one day I'll go back to that. I'm not sure, but there's nothing that I wouldn't want to write. I just love so many different genres as a reader that I think it kind of feels like a cool challenge to think about taking on some of those genres I haven't before when it comes to my own like storytelling and writing.
Okay, and before we leave here, you have some numbers in the first. I'm showing the audience. We have some numbers. I wanted to ask you about them. If there's a meaning to them or.
Yes, there is a meaning. It's so my probably just a few weeks before I got the idea for Fable, my father passed away, and this was back in 2016. And I think it really did, that experience inspired a lot of this story. I mean, even just her, coming to terms with her father leaving, that he wasn't coming back, like trying to find him, trying to understand him. I think all of those things really came from my own grief in losing my father. And so I dedicated the book to him. And I knew from the beginning that it would be dedicated to him, but I also wanted to put like a little message, like a secret message in there to him. And so that those numbers are like a cipher that I created using a very rare edition of one of his favorite books. And I've never told anyone what book it is. I've never told anyone what the message says. And it's just something between me and my dad that I wanted to put out there for him.
We wanted to know something.
Secret.
Yeah, I know. We are like that. We love gossip, I'm sorry. Before we leave, would you ever like to come to visit Latin America, Spain? Is it in your plans?
Yes, I definitely. That I've always wanted to go to Spain. There's so many places in Latin America that I want to go. I want to go everywhere. I was supposed to go to Spain during the pandemic, and we had to cancel our plans because of everything. But it's definitely places that I want to go, and I would love to meet Spanish readers as well for the first time because I haven't been able to yet. So yeah, definitely.
Well, to wrap it up, would you like to say, I don't know, something like, I'll be there someday soon, I want to talk with you? What is your message for your fantastic readers, both in Latin America and in Spain?
I want to say thank you so much for welcoming Fable with so much warmth and excitement. I feel like the readers who I've been waiting for this book to come out in Spanish, and I feel like it's just being embraced, and readers are excited about it, and they want to go on this adventure with me. And so I am so excited for the next book to come out and more books in the future to come out in Spanish, and just to continue going on that journey with my readers.
Okay, thanks a lot, Adrienne, for your time. Y les recordamos que ya está a la venta, disponible en todas las librerías Fable, y que tenemos la continuación Namesake en octubre y el tercer libro, The Last Legacy, en enero. Y en el 2023 también tenemos la primera novela para adultos que ha escrito Adrienne. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.